Yo, what is good, my anime people? What is good, yo? I know this is quite late, but I definitely wanted to get this out sooner than later. Dang it, I forgot to equip a certain weapon. I wanted to get this out sooner than later, just because Fairy Gone is definitely swinging back around, and it's not a show that I necessarily gave up on. It's just now that I'm in a position where I've been continuously uploading as much as I can, and I continuously do so. It's just it's just a little bit annoying to have certain aspects of like the things that I use to be able to record and be able to capture stuff, or like just to be able to watch in general, just like malfunctions in it. That was one of those days where Fairy Gone kind of got the bad end of it, where I try to watch the episode and wherever I got to, it completely reset and all this nonsense. So, with all that being said, this week's episode was probably one of the best episodes for fighting wise. Like, there was no heavy CGI used throughout like this whole entire episode. So, of course, the one time I'm, like trying to see great, like good stuff in this show, it could have happened, but malfunctions happen as well. So that really sucks for me. um, but yeah, this week's episode actually has some pretty cool action with the girls kind of just having their own first mission together. Not to mention, our main character hadn't even been to this town before, so she got to adventure out a little bit and see what that this town seemed really preppy. Like a lot of uppity people would be living in here, just in the sense of how much more established, and there wasn't really that many like people living next to like the railroads or something like that. So it just gave me more of a vibe. And there's like an auction house, like people coming through here to sell very, very expensive and high tech stuff. So it just goes to show you that there's a certain type of class of people that are in this area, and even if you aren't that type of class, you probably show up to trade or to make some money working out in this area. So that was interesting to see, like the scenery change like dramatically. Not to mention it not be all just CGI, like how the rest of the episodes have been mainly. So we get to see the ladies take out, not really like kill anybody, but they straight up beat the crap out of some guy who was trying to get a little bit touchy feely with how he was gonna, ask the ladies for information that he had. He's like, well, I didn't get paid enough, so what if you add a little bit of extra to my payment? Well, then we'll talk, and not knowing that these girls didn't even need their fairies to straight up body them. They would have honestly gotten destroyed if they pulled out their fairies, which just goes. I like that they do stuff like that to show you that, yeah, they have these very, very powerful ways of fighting, but not all necessary situations that they get in call for that type of force or that much of power. So that was one cool way, in my opinion, of showing that. Not to mention the fact that I actually like the main character, like the girl, and how she's like presented in this show, because she's honestly like she seems like one of those sweethearts, but then as soon as she starts running you down, or in this case she was chasing the guy, she couldn't keep up with them, so he got away and got to like hide off and you know have a nice like train ride, because no one could. He went on not wearing a hat, and then next thing you know, he was wearing a hat. So boom, bam, he blends in. And then on the other case, you have this whole interesting like chase when he gets off the train, and they have the girl act like they don't know where the heck he could have gone, because they don't. But because he saw one person reacting, he came out accordingly, and that gave them the opportunity to find where he was actually hiding. So really smart ladies, and usually when a show or just in general how stories have been interpreted. Like, usually women get in trouble all the time, and then a knight in shining armor comes and shows up and gets them. So I'm kind of glad that they gave these ladies a good moment like this. Not to mention that um, they needed no help, and everybody that they went against were, grown men that had good opportunities of either trying to fight or get away from them, and they still made the best of the situation and figured it out. So I think they did very well on that aspect of the storytelling of this week's episode, and not to mention how great it looked the whole time because it was just nicely animated instead of what I was telling you before. So, plus on everything with this week's compared to any of the other weeks. So, yeah, I mean, and this was like just ladies episode. There wasn't really no action from the guys. There was a little conversation from two guys that I thought were gonna maybe have to find out about a traitor amongst their people, because what we get to see is there's a new type of these robot slash like fairy kind of controlled units that were helping fight in the war, and because one has like malfunction and started to act up, it was clear to them that this got to be a defect in this one, or something along the lines where if this thing keeps happening, you can't have it out there. So with that being one thing that the government now has to keep an eye on even more, and probably send out more soldiers just to keep that under wraps, it's almost like this is all being orchestrated by somebody else. And who could that someone else be? And we find out it's someone who's literally sitting at the table with all the people at the higher ups of this place. So, plot twist, the people who are the big heads are usually always the enemy, if not mostly the enemies. We also heard about the five dukes and just how all of their deaths really seemed unreasonably planned out by someone else, like going on revolts and getting taken out, or just simply, being in the wrong place at the wrong time types of deals. So it's pretty clear that someone had it out for them, and it's also interesting that we're learning about all those people passing away like that, and how much significance they held, and that their name then pops up with the same name as the man that the blonde girl is chasing after. It goes to show that a lot of a lot of these higher ups are clearly connected with some type of past history with that village that they burned down a long time ago. So I don't know. It's getting really interesting. It might have been that village might have been a village that worshipped the fairies or something. I just can't tell with what this show wants to do with the overall like characters or narrative yet. So that's kind of the fun part for me, just kind of figure out what that is all going to transpire to be. And yeah, from what I can tell, it's gonna be very, very fun to witness who's on whose side at the end of this, because now we kind of don't know. I mean, the guy who showed, there's two guys that have been talking about pretty much making history or kind of controlling their own destiny types of deals, and both of them are in the same room right now and said, you look well, and so do you. Like, they could be fake straight to each other's face, and they both know it, and they just don't do anything about it or care to do anything about it. So we'll see. Very, very fun episode this week because no CGI really. I mean, there was some, but hardly CGI when you go back to the other episodes and see the comparisons. Like, my God, it's almost as if they're putting budgets into certain aspects of the show that maybe should have been used all together and took more time for the show to come out. But who knows? I honestly don't know the background of this full story of these anime studios nowadays and what could possibly be going on. So with all that being said, though, I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, evening, whatever the case may be. Looks like next week we're gonna find out just what the whistle was used, like who's using the whistle, what they plan on after using the whistle for, because the whistle is the thing that actually caused the malfunction in these military grade fighting machines, and because of that, they need to now figure out a way to pretty much, solve the case. And since they haven't found anything, it's still in the air, like 100%. Like, oh well, there's nothing wrong. You can't find anything wrong, then there's nothing wrong. So I can't wait to see what happens. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow for sure. So with that being said, peace.